The Grand Minister of the Galactic Council, Central, hadn't stopped trembling since the emergency session began. His crystalline appendages clicked against the marble-like podium as he adjusted the neural transmitter. Around him, representatives of 300 spacefaring civilizations murmured in a cacophony of languages, clicks, and telepathic whispers. "Please," he began, his translator converting his harmonic tones into standard galactic common. "Please silence your communications." The chamber, a vast sphere suspended in the heart of the galactic hub station, gradually fell quiet. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing real-time footage from dozens of worlds across the galaxy. Each image told the same story: planets transforming at impossible speeds. "What you are witnessing," Central continued, "is not a natural phenomenon. These changes began exactly 3 standard cycles ago, coinciding with humanity's first wave of interstellar colonization. The images shifted to show the human colony ships, primitive by galactic standards, but somehow more terrifying for their simplicity. The vessels were ungainly, practical things, built with the characteristic human disregard for aesthetic harmony. But it wasn't their appearance that caused several council members to emit distress pheromones. A representative from the Silicon Consciousness Collective raised their energy form. "These transformations violate fundamental laws of planetary development. Our simulations indicate that such rapid changes should be impossible without planet-scale terraforming engines." Central interrupted. "That's what we thought too. But the humans aren't using machines. They're doing something far worse." The display zoomed in on a human colony on Proxima b, where there had been silicon-based vegetation just months ago. Earth grasses now swayed in the artificial atmosphere. The transformation zone extended in a perfect circle around the colony, expanding daily. "They're carrying it inside them," the Grand Minister explained. "Every human, every single one, is a vector for the most aggressive environmental reconstruction agent we've ever encountered. Their microscopic symbiotes don't just adapt to new environments. They transform those environments completely." The chamber erupted in chaos. The Methan Brothers representative had to be escorted out when their environment suit began showing signs of stress fractures. The hive mind of Betelgeuse 7 split into its component consciousness in panic, requiring 3 security drones to help them reintegrate. "Please." Central's voice cut through the disorder. "This is why we've gathered. We must broadcast a unified message. Not a threat. Threats will only make them defensive. This must be a plea." The main display showed a navigation chart of human expansion. Red dots indicated transformed worlds, yellow showed worlds in transition, and white marked projected human expansion routes. The pattern looked disturbingly like a viral spread model. "Their own scientists don't fully understand what they've created," Central continued. "Centuries of surviving their world's industrial poisons have turned their bacterial companions into something new. Something that sees every environment as a challenge to be overcome. Something that won't stop until everything it touches becomes Earth-like." The chamber's Scholar Prime, a being of pure thought encased in a quantum crystal, pulsed with revelation. "The humans think they're helping. They see dead worlds and make them live again, by their definition of life. They encounter toxic atmospheres and cleanse them, by their standards of clean." "Exactly," Central agreed, "which is why we can't approach this as a conflict. The humans aren't conquering the galaxy, they're accidentally terraforming it. Every world they touch starts transforming into a copy of Earth. If we don't reach them now, make them understand what they're doing." He let the thought hang in the air as the displays showed once familiar worlds turning steadily blue and green. Several members of the council were already drafting evacuation orders for their frontier colonies. "The message goes out in 1 standard hour," Central announced. "We beg humanity's mercy not because they're militarily stronger, but because every step they take literally reshapes our galaxy. May whatever forces they believe in help us all if they don't listen." As the council chamber descended into urgent deliberations, no one noticed the small trading vessel quietly receiving the transmission. In its cargo hold, boxes of authentic Earth probiotics waited for delivery to eager black market customers across the outer rim. The transformation of the galaxy had already begun. Dr. Amanda Taylor stared at her datapad, then back at the tomato plant that shouldn't exist. 3 days ago, this had been a controlled experiment in Martian soil enhancement. Now she was looking at a fully mature plant heavy with ripe fruit, its roots somehow transforming the red Martian soil into dark, rich earth loam. "Run the analysis again," she told her lab assistant, Mark Reynolds. The young man nodded, his environmental suit creaking as he extracted another soil sample from beneath the rapidly expanding garden. The Mars Colonial Agricultural Station stretched around them in a series of interconnected geodesic domes, each one a carefully controlled environment. Or at least they were supposed to be controlled. Amanda watched as patches of green spread across the rusty soil like watercolors bleeding on paper. "Doctor, you need to see this." Mark's voice cracked with excitement or fear, possibly both. He held up a sample container filled with soil. As they watched, the red Martian regolith visibly darkened, organic compounds forming before their eyes. Amanda grabbed her microscope tablet, hands shaking as she placed a tiny sample on the scanning surface. The image that appeared made her breath catch. The bacterial helpers she'd engineered weren't just supporting the plants. They were completely rebuilding the molecular structure of the Martian soil. "This is impossible," she whispered, but the evidence kept growing literally under her feet. A crack in the flooring near her boot was sprouting earthgrass, the bacteria from the experimental plot already spreading through the supposedly sealed environment. Her comm unit chimed with an incoming priority message. "Dr. Taylor." The station director's voice was tense. "Please tell me you can explain why we're getting atmospheric composition alerts from all 6 agricultural domes." Amanda looked up at the dome's transparent ceiling. Condensation was forming. Actual water droplets on Mars, without any atmospheric processors running. Her enhanced bacteria weren't just changing the soil, they were releasing oxygen and moisture as a byproduct of their soil conversion process. "Director," she managed, "I think we need to contact Earth immediately. Our bacterial enhancement project just went exponential." The next 48 hours passed in a blur of emergency meetings, frantic data analysis, and increasingly alarming sensor readings. The transformation had spread to all agricultural domes and was somehow seeping into the main colony structure. Air processors were registering unprecedented increases in oxygen levels, and pressure sensors showed rising atmospheric density around the entire colony. Amanda sat in her office, surrounded by holographic displays showing the spread of the transformation. Her original goal had been simple: engineer Earth bacteria to help plants survive in Martian soil. The bacteria in her samples had come from industrial cleanup sites back on Earth, specially evolved to break down pollutants and rebuild damaged soil. "Dr. Taylor." Mark appeared in her doorway, his face pale. "The European Space Agency just contacted us. They're seeing similar transformations at their Olympus Mons station." "That's impossible." Amanda stood up so quickly she knocked over her coffee. "We never sent them any samples." "They didn't need samples," Mark explained. "Doctor, it's spreading through us. Every human on Mars is carrying these bacteria. We're the vectors." The realization hit her like a physical blow. The bacteria hadn't just adapted to clean up pollution. They'd evolved to form a symbiotic relationship with humans themselves. Every colonist was unknowingly seeding Mars with supercharged terraforming organisms. Amanda's tablet chimed with a new alert. Satellite imagery showed expanding zones of transformation around every human settlement on Mars. The red planet was literally turning green, one bacterial colony at a time. "Send a priority message to Earth," she told Mark, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. "Tell them we've accidentally created the most efficient terraforming system in human history. And tell them." She paused, watching another patch of Martian soil transform through her office window. Tell them we have no idea how to stop it. In low Mars orbit, an automated survey probe recorded the changes spreading across the planet's surface. Its AI flagged the data as priority and transmitted it toward Earth, unaware that it was documenting the beginning of humanity's unintended conquest of the stars. Jack Morrison had spent 6 months learning the proper way to greet a Sktheri noble. The crystalline beings were notoriously particular about their protocols, and as Earth's first ambassador to their species, he couldn't afford any mistakes. He practiced the exact angle of the bow, the precise gesture of respect, and the careful modulation of his voice to avoid disturbing their sensitive crystalline structures. What no one had prepared him for was the way his handshake would accidentally begin rewriting galactic history. The Sktheri High Chancellor, second facet of the morning light, towered over him in the grand reception hall. Their crystalline body refracted the light of 3 suns, casting rainbow patterns across walls made of living crystal that had been growing for millennia. Earth Ambassador Morrison. The Chancellor's translation crystal chimed. We welcome you to the crystal spires of enlightenment. Jack executed his bow perfectly, then extended his hand in what had been agreed upon as a modified Earth greeting. The honor is mine, most radiant Chancellor. The moment their appendages touched, a few microscopic skin cells transferred from Jack's palm to the Chancellor's crystalline surface. In that instant, humanity's bacterial companions found a new world to transform. Neither of them noticed anything wrong during the initial diplomatic discussions. Jack presented Earth's proposal for trade relations, careful to emphasize humanity's respect for Sktheri culture and their ancient wisdom. The Chancellor seemed receptive, their facets glowing with what Jack's cultural advisors assured him was approval. Then an aide rushed into the chamber, their crystalline form vibrating with distress. Most radiant one, the archive spire. It's changing. The Chancellor's translation crystal emitted a burst of discordant tones. On the enormous viewing wall, an image appeared of one of the sacred crystal towers. Jack watched in horror as the base of the structure began to cloud, organic patterns spreading through the previously perfect crystal. What is happening? The Chancellor's voice shattered 3 minor decorative crystals. Our archives have stood unchanged for 10,000 years. Jack felt a cold sweat break out on his forehead as he recognized the pattern. He'd seen something similar in the Mars reports, the signature of human bacterial transformation. But this was supposedly impossible. The Sktheri weren't organic. They were living crystal, completely alien to Earth life. Most radiant Chancellor, he started, but was interrupted by another aide. It's spreading. The Great Hall of Remembrance, the Prismatic Library, the Fountain of First Light, all showing signs of organic contamination. The Chancellor turned to Jack, their facets darkening. Earth Ambassador, explain this violation of our sacred spaces. Jack's mind raced. How could he explain something he barely understood himself? Chancellor, I believe this may be an unintended effect of our biological nature. Our scientists have recently discovered that human bacterial companions have evolved unexpected capabilities. Capabilities. The Chancellor's voice rose to a frequency that made Jack's teeth ache. Your microscopic allies are converting our crystal archives into organic compounds. 10,000 years of knowledge, transforming into what your kind calls biomass. The transformation was visible now even in the grand reception hall. The crystal floors were becoming cloudy, organic patterns swirling beneath the surface. Several Sktheri nobles had backed away from Jack, their forms resonating with frequencies his translator refused to process. We can help, Jack offered desperately. Our scientists can study the process, find a way to stop it. No. The Chancellor's form pulsed with colored light. No more human contact. You will return to your ship immediately. The Sktheri collective withdraws from all diplomatic negotiations with Earth. As security crystals escorted him from the chamber, Jack caught a final glimpse of the viewing wall. The archive spire, once a perfect crystal column reaching into the sky, was now wrapped in organic structures that looked disturbingly like earth vines. In his secured diplomatic vessel, Racing away from the crystal world, Jack recorded his report to Earth Command. "The bacteria we've evolved with," he concluded, "they don't just transform dead worlds. They're rewriting the very nature of alien civilizations, and we have no way to control it." The ship's sensors recorded the spread of transformation across the crystal city below, documenting another chapter in humanity's accidental conquest of the galaxy. Emily Rodriguez never meant to become the most controversial business owner in the galaxy. Her little shop, Earthy's Exotic Probiotics, started as a novelty store in New Singapore's Xenological District. She sold Earth yogurt to adventurous alien tourists, marketing it as an exotic taste of human culture. The warning label clearly stated, "For non-human consumption at own risk." Now she stood before the Interstellar Commerce Board, trying to explain why her products had accidentally triggered the biggest genetic shift in galactic history. Ms. Rodriguez, the Valerian judge's tentacles writhed with barely contained agitation. "Your classic Earth vanilla yogurt has caused digestive system mutations in 17 different species. How do you explain this?" Emily clutched her data tablet tighter. "Sir, we followed all existing xenological safety protocols. Our products were clearly labeled as Earth origin consumables." Labeled. A methane breather representative burbled through their translator. "My species purchased your products as decorative items. We never intended to consume them. Yet merely keeping sealed containers in our homes has caused environmental changes." The evidence displays activated, showing time-lapse footage from across the galaxy. A Jovian gas mining colony where the atmospheric composition had shifted toward Earth normal. A deep space crystal farm where the minerals were restructuring into organic compounds. A hive mind colony where the shared consciousness network had begun developing individualized digestive systems. "The bacterial strains in your products," the judge continued, "they're not just affecting consumers. They're transforming entire environments." Emily brought up her sales data. "Your Honors, we've actually received thousands of positive testimonials. The Centaurians report they can now digest carbon-based foods for the first time in their history. The Silicon Collective claims improved neural processing after exposure to our probiotic supplements." That's exactly the problem. The methane breather's environment suit vented excess gas in agitation. Species are changing without consent. The Centaurians have begun developing organic digestive systems. The Silicon Collective is experiencing unprecedented individuation of consciousness. A quiet voice came from the back of the chamber. "And some of us are grateful for it." All appendages turned to face Ambassador Zix of the Outer Rim colonies. The being's exoskeleton showed signs of recent organic transformation, with softening edges and newly developed pigmentation. "My people suffered from severe nutrient processing limitations," Zix continued. "We were dependent on expensive synthetic processors. Thanks to these Earth probiotics, we can now consume a variety of organic materials. Our survival rate has increased by 40%. The chamber erupted in argument. Emily watched as different factions formed, those horrified by the uncontrolled transformations versus those secretly or openly embracing the changes. Her sales terminal chimed quietly, displaying another 1,000 orders from the Outer Rim. "Order." The judge's crystalline gavel cracked against the podium. "Ms. Rodriguez, your business license is hereby suspended pending further investigation. All remaining stock is to be quarantined immediately." Emily nodded, already knowing it was too late. Her latest sales reports showed massive black market distribution networks. Smugglers were paying premium prices for Earth yogurt cultures. Even her small sample packets were trading for astronomical sums in frontier markets. As she packed up her presentation materials, Ambassador Zix approached her quietly. "The official ruling is unfortunate," they whispered, their newly developed vocal cords still adjusting to speech. "But know that many of us consider your products a revolution. Evolution is not always comfortable, but it is often necessary." Back in her shop, Emily began the official quarantine procedures. Through her window, she could see the evening crowd in the Xenological District. More aliens than ever were visiting Earth cuisine restaurants, trying Earth-based products, deliberately exposing themselves to human bacterial influence. Her terminal chimed with an encrypted message, an order for 10,000 units from an anonymous buyer in the Outer Rim. Below it, a simple note read, "Some of us choose to evolve." Emily looked at her quarantine seals, then at the message. Humanity's bacteria had already changed her own gut microbiome to process alien foods. Could she really deny others the same adaptation? The transformation of the galaxy continued, one probiotic culture at a time. Dr. Michael Thompson stood knee-deep in the warm Pacific waters off Hawaii, holding a sample container that might explain humanity's accidental conquest of the stars. Around him, the former North Pacific garbage patch had become something entirely new, an artificial ecosystem created by decades of bacterial evolution. "Look at this," he called to his research partner, Dr. Rebecca Santos, who was taking readings nearby. "These microorganisms aren't just breaking down plastics anymore. They're reconstructing them into organic compounds." The water around them teemed with life, but not the kind anyone would have recognized 20 years ago. The bacteria had evolved to not only consume industrial waste, but to transform it into building blocks for new life forms. What had once been a swirling mass of garbage was now a thriving reef system, built from transformed plastics and industrial chemicals. "The satellite data just came in," Rebecca said, checking her floating holoscreen. "We're seeing similar patterns at every major oceanic cleanup site. The bacteria aren't just cleaning up pollution, they're rebuilding entire ecosystems." Michael adjusted his smart lenses to magnify the water sample. The bacterial colonies moved with an almost intelligent purpose, breaking down and reassembling molecular structures in real time. Years of exposure to Earth's industrial pollution had turned them into microscopic engineers. "Send a priority message to the Exobiology Committee," he said, watching the sample shimmer with activity. "I think I know why our colonies are transforming alien worlds." Hours later, in a secured conference room at the Pacific Marine Research Center, Michael faced a panel of Earth's leading scientists and 2 alien observers. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. "These bacterial strains," he explained, pointing to the holographic display. "They evolved in our planet's most polluted regions, but instead of just surviving the pollution, they learned to repurpose it. They became molecular assemblers, capable of breaking down almost any material and reconstructing it into forms more suitable for Earth-type life." The display showed time-lapse footage from the Pacific cleanup site. Industrial waste materials literally transformed into organic compounds before their eyes. One of the alien observers, a quantum mind housed in a crystalline matrix, pulsed with agitation. "And you carry these molecular engineers within your bodies?" the being asked through its translator. "We don't just carry them," Michael replied. "We've evolved with them. They're part of us now. Every human is a host to billions of these adaptive bacteria. When we started colonizing space, we didn't realize we were bringing the most efficient terraforming system ever created." Rebecca stepped forward, adding to the explanation. "The bacteria in our bodies have been shaped by centuries of industrial evolution. They learned to survive in the harshest environments we created, and now they're applying that ability to alien worlds." The second alien observer, a methane breather, vented anxiety gases. "This explains the transformations we've observed. Your bacterial companions see our worlds as problems to be solved, polluted environments to be corrected." Michael nodded, bringing up new data from colonial outposts. "Every human settlement becomes a transformation center. Our bacteria break down alien materials and rebuild them into Earth-compatible forms. They're not just adapting to new environments, they're adapting those environments to match Earth conditions. Can it be stopped?" The quantum mind pulsed with concern. "That's the thing," Michael said, zooming in on a bacterial culture. "These aren't simple organisms anymore. They're the product of centuries of survival against everything humanity could throw at them. They've become the ultimate environmental engineers. And they're still evolving." The implications hung heavy in the room. Humanity hadn't conquered the galaxy with weapons or technology. They'd done it with the microscopic survivors of their own industrial mistakes. Every human was now a walking terraforming engine, unknowingly transforming the galaxy one world at a time. "We need to tell everyone," Rebecca said quietly. "The entire galaxy needs to understand what we've accidentally become." Michael looked at his sample container, where the bacteria continued their endless work of transformation. "We're not just humans anymore," he replied. "We're the carriers of Earth's legacy, the power to rebuild worlds. Heaven help the galaxy if we can't learn to control it." Colonel Jessica Hayes stood before the Galactic Council's emergency session, her dress uniform crisp despite the sweltering heat of the chamber. The environmental controls had been adjusted to accommodate dozens of different species, creating a climate that felt like Houston in August. She didn't let them see her sweat. "Distinguished representatives," she began, her voice steady, "Earth understands your fears. Our bacterial companions have caused unprecedented changes across the galaxy. But what if I told you we could control these changes? Direct them. Use them to transform dead worlds into living ones." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of protests, translated through hundreds of devices into a wall of sound. The crystalline elders' chimes of outrage harmonized with the Mething brothers' bubbling dismissals. Jessica waited for the noise to die down, then nodded to her assistant. The main display activated, showing a barren moon orbiting a gas giant in the Proxima system. "This is Haven Moon," she explained. 2 weeks ago, it was an airless rock. Now, watch." The time-lapse footage showed green spreading across the moon's surface like watercolors bleeding through paper. Atmosphere readings appeared alongside the images, showing rapidly increasing oxygen levels. Lakes formed in ancient craters as bacterial processes released water trapped in mineral forms. "Impossible." The Silicon Consciousness representative flickered with agitation. "Such transformation would take centuries with conventional terraforming. Not with directed bacterial engineering," Jessica countered. She brought up detailed scans. "We've learned to guide our bacterial companions. The strains used on Haven Moon were specifically designed to create an Earth-like environment without affecting neighboring worlds." The Quantum Collective's representative pulsed with skeptical energy. "You claim control, yet your colonies continue to transform environments without guidance." "Because we didn't understand what we were doing," Jessica admitted. "But now we do. The bacteria respond to human biochemical signals. By adjusting those signals, we can direct their transformative abilities." She gestured, and the display split to show multiple worlds. Each displayed different types of transformation. Some partial, some complete, all controlled. "Imagine," she continued, her voice softening, "dead worlds brought to life. Toxic atmospheres cleaned. Radiation-blasted moons turned into gardens. Not through centuries of mechanical terraforming, but through guided biological transformation." A representative from the Outer Rim colonies floated forward. Their environment suit showed signs of recent modification to accommodate their species' ongoing changes. "My people," they began, "have suffered on harsh worlds for generations. Our children have never seen growing things. If what you offer is real." "It is." Jessica nodded to her assistant again. The display showed a small garden on the Haven Moon colony. Alien plants grew alongside Earth species, their biology gradually adapting to coexist rather than being completely transformed. "We can control the degree of change," she explained. "Full terraforming for dead worlds, partial adaptation for living ones. The choice would belong to each species, each world." The chamber grew quiet as the implications sank in. Jessica could almost see the calculations happening behind alien eyes and sensor arrays. The cost of conventional terraforming, the waiting lists for habitable worlds, the refugee populations trapped on dying planets. There would be strict controls, she added into the silence. Earth proposes the creation of a planetary transformation authority. All changes would be regulated, monitored, and approved by a galactic board. The Galactic Council's Grand Minister leaned forward. "And if we refuse?" If we demand you cease all transformation activities. Jessica met their gaze steadily. With respect, Minister, that's no longer possible. Our bacteria are part of what we are now. We can learn to control them, to direct them, to use them wisely. But we cannot stop being what evolution has made us. She let that sink in before delivering her final point. The choice isn't between transformation and no transformation. It's between controlled, beneficial change and random, unchecked alteration. We're offering you the power to guide that change. The council chamber buzzed with private communications as species debated among themselves. Jessica stood quietly, knowing that humanity's place in the galaxy would be decided in the next few moments. A message flashed on her neural link. Haven Moon's first crops were ready for harvest. Life was taking hold on a world that had been dead for billions of years. The future would be transformed, one world at a time. David Cooper wiped sweat from his forehead as he checked the seals on his environment suit. The abandoned mining outpost on Kepler 186 F wasn't meant to support human life, but that was about to change. Behind him, 20 desperate colonists from the outer rim waited in their sealed habitation pod. Remember, he told them through the comlink, once we start this process, there's no going back. Your world will begin transforming within hours. The colony leader, a gaunt woman named Sarah Chen, nodded inside her suit. Our children have never seen a blue sky. We've spent 3 generations breathing recycled air. We're ready. David unsealed the container he'd smuggled past a dozen checkpoints. Inside, carefully cultivated bacterial colonies waited to begin their work. Black market terraforming wasn't just illegal, it was considered an act of biological warfare by the Galactic Council. He'd started this operation 6 months ago, after leaving his job as a construction worker on Mars. The money was good, but that wasn't why he did it. Every successful transformation meant another world where people could breathe free air, where children could play under open skies. Initiating Sequence Alpha, he announced, activating the dispersal system. The bacterial cultures would spread through the existing ventilation system, carried by carefully programmed nanobots. Time to transformation, approximately 6 hours. Sarah's voice cracked with emotion. The council denied our application for official terraforming 3 times, said our world was too close to major trade routes, that the changes might affect passing ships. David checked the atmospheric sensors he placed around the outpost. The bacteria were already beginning their work, breaking down the toxic atmosphere and reconstructing it molecule by molecule. The council's scared, he replied, watching the numbers change. They don't understand that this isn't about conquering or changing other species. It's about survival. A warning light flashed on his helmet display. Security scan incoming. Everyone maintain radio silence. The tense minutes ticked by as a Galactic Council patrol ship passed overhead. David held his breath, watching the sensor readings. The ship's scanners swept the area twice before moving on. Too late to stop it now anyway, he muttered. The transformation had taken hold. Already, the outpost's external sensors showed rising oxygen levels. Sarah's team crowded around their atmospheric displays, watching in wonder as their world began to change. Look at these readings, one of them whispered. The toxins are breaking down faster than you predicted. David smiled. His bacterial cultures had been refined through dozens of previous transformations. Each success taught him more about guiding the process, about helping the bacteria work more efficiently. The floor beneath them shuddered. Outside the outpost's viewports, the ground was already showing signs of change. Bacterial action was releasing water trapped in mineral forms, creating the first puddles this world had seen in millions of years. Then the alarm he'd been dreading finally sounded. Council interceptor, his security system warned. Approaching at high speed. They're too late, Sarah said fiercely. The process has gone critical, even if they arrest us now. Nobody's getting arrested. David reached for the sealed packet he always carried. Special bacterial strain. My own creation. It'll mask our biosignatures, make it look like natural evolution. He broke the seal, releasing the culture into the outpost's air supply. The interceptor landed as David was finishing his cleanup. When the Council enforcement team burst in, they found only confused miners dealing with unexpected atmospheric changes. Natural bacterial evolution, David explained innocently to the lead investigator. Happens sometimes on worlds like this. Must be something in the mineral composition. The investigator's scanners found nothing to contradict his story. They couldn't detect the carefully engineered bacteria that were already transforming the planet, or the masked biosignatures of the colonists. After the council team left, Sarah approached him privately. "There are other colonies like ours," she said quietly. "Other worlds where people can't breathe free." David was already checking his encrypted messages. 3 new requests for transformation had arrived while he was working. "The council can't stop evolution," he replied, beginning to plan his next operation. "They can only choose whether to help guide it." Above them, through the viewport, the first Earth-like clouds were beginning to form in the alien sky. Professor Lisa Martinez stood before her classroom at the Earth Institute of Planetary Engineering, looking out at the most diverse group of students in human history. Crystalline beings sparkled next to methane breathers, while energy forms hovered above quantum consciousness matrices. Each had come to learn the art of controlled transformation. Through the classroom's transparent dome, Venus gleamed like a blue jewel in the morning sky, Earth's first large-scale demonstration of controlled planetary engineering. Today's lesson, Lisa began, activating the holographic display, focuses on selective bacterial programming. The key to successful transformation isn't just about changing environments. It's about knowing when and how to preserve what already exists. A crystalline student raised a faceted appendage. "Professor, my people still fear the unconstrained changes we first witnessed. How do we prevent accidental transformations?" Lisa smiled, remembering how far they'd come from those early days of panic. "An excellent question. Computer, display case study 47. The Crystal Spires Restoration." The hologram showed the famous crystal cities that had once been accidentally transformed by human contact. But now, instead of chaotic organic growth, the crystal structures had been partially adapted, creating a stunning hybrid of crystalline and organic architecture. The breakthrough, Lisa explained, came when we learned to program our bacterial companions to recognize and preserve specific molecular structures. We're not just terraformers anymore. We're environmental artists, capable of blending multiple forms of life. A methane breather student burbled through their translator. "Is it true that the first transformations were accidental? That humanity didn't know what they were capable of?" "Absolutely true." Lisa brought up historical footage of the first Mars colonies, where the transformation had first been discovered. Our bacterial companions evolved alongside us through centuries of industrial development. We didn't create them. We survived together, adapted together, and in the process, became something entirely new. The display shifted to show current projects across the galaxy. Dead worlds blooming with life. Toxic atmospheres cleared by specialized bacterial strains. Hybrid ecosystems where Earth life grew alongside alien biology, each adapting to the other. Your final project, Lisa continued, will be to design a customized transformation plan for your homeworlds. Not to make them Earth-like, but to help them become their best possible versions of themselves. An energy-being student pulsed with curiosity. "But Professor, how do we control such power? The responsibility is enormous." Lisa nodded, touching the molecular scanner at her wrist. It showed her personal bacterial population, now carefully engineered to work in harmony with alien life forms. "That's why we're here," she replied. The Earth Institute was founded on the principle that great power requires great understanding. Each of you will learn not just the science of transformation, but the ethics of preservation. She gestured to the window, where construction crews were building new dormitories for next year's expanded class. The workers, human and alien alike, carried carefully engineered bacterial populations that helped them adapt to each other's environments. 20 years ago, the galaxy feared us. Lisa said softly. They called us world breakers, reality shapers, the unstoppable tide. But look at us now. The hologram showed their latest graduation ceremony. Beings from across the galaxy, each carrying certificates in controlled environmental engineering. Many had gone on to help restore dying worlds or create new habitats for refugee populations. We didn't choose to become engines of transformation, she concluded. Evolution made that choice for us. But we did choose how to use that power. And thanks to all of you, we're building a galaxy where different forms of life don't just survive. They thrive together. The morning sun caught Venus again, making it sparkle like a promise. On its surface, Earth plants grew alongside adapted Venusian life forms, creating something entirely new. A quantum consciousness student processed the view and chimed with understanding. We're not just learning to transform worlds, they observed. We're learning to transform ourselves. Lisa smiled. In the end, that had been humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy. Not the power to reshape reality, but the wisdom to know when and how to use that power. Above them, the stars beckoned with endless possibilities.